Formula One is about to enter the most controversial era in decades. Pre-season testing is finished. The data is no longer theoretical. And two of the biggest names in modern racing have just delivered a warning that could shake the FIA to its core. Max Verstappen called the new car a broken video game. Lewis Hamilton admitted he had to relearn how to brake from scratch. Multiple drivers say they cannot go flat out for an entire lap. With 1,000 horsepower available. Let that sink in. In the fastest sport on Earth, drivers are lifting in the middle of straights to protect battery levels. Active wings are deciding grip in milliseconds. Torque sensors can cut power automatically. And drivers are describing themselves as passengers of the system. The FIA promised closer racing. More overtakes. A bold new sustainable future. But what if they have created something too complex, too artificial, too detached from what fans in the United States and the United Kingdom actually love about this sport? Because if Verstappen and Hamilton are right, 2026 will not just be a new chapter. It could be the moment Formula One crossed a line it cannot easily walk back from. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this is not just pre-season drama. It is a potential turning point for the future of Formula One. The first major problem is not speed. It is control. Under the 2026 regulations, Formula One cars will produce around 1,000 horsepower. On paper, that sounds spectacular. Aggressive. Explosive. But here is what Verstappen revealed after testing. You cannot use all of it. Not for an entire lap. The power unit is split almost evenly between combustion and electrical energy. That means half of your performance depends on battery deployment. And that battery has limits. If a driver pushes too hard in the opening corners, the system will not allow full power at the end of the straight. So what happens? They lift. They coast. They manage. In qualifying. In racing. At the highest level of motorsport. Verstappen said he feels more like an accountant than a racing driver. Because instead of attacking every corner, he is calculating energy curves. Monitoring regeneration. Thinking 2 sectors ahead. And this is not just a Red Bull issue. Hamilton admitted that adapting to the new brake-by-wire system forced him to completely change his driving style. The front axle now regenerates massive electrical energy under braking. So much that the pedal feel changes during the lap. Imagine entering a fast corner. You press the brake. But the resistance is not consistent. It depends on how much energy the system is harvesting at that exact moment. Years of muscle memory become unreliable. And when drivers lose trust in brake feel, confidence drops. Now add the active aerodynamics. Front and rear wings that switch modes automatically. Low drag on straights. High downforce in corners. Brilliant in theory. But if airflow changes, especially in dirty air, the transition can destabilize the car. George Russell already warned about this. A rear wing that fails to close at high speed is not a small glitch. It is a serious safety risk. And this is happening before a single race has even started. Pre-season testing is over. Teams were running controlled programs. Fuel loads managed. Temperatures monitored carefully. Australia will be different. Full race conditions. Wheel-to-wheel traffic. Hot batteries. Crosswinds. Active aero switching under real pressure. If drivers are already lifting during testing, what happens when they are fighting for position? And here is where it becomes even more uncomfortable. Several teams experienced heavy clipping at the end of long straights. You could see it. Speed builds. Then flattens. Other cars continue accelerating. That difference could decide overtakes. Championship points. Maybe even a title. Not because of bravery. But because of who managed energy more efficiently 2 corners earlier. This is the shift. Formula One is no longer purely mechanical competition. It is computational strategy at extreme speed. And when 2 icons like Verstappen and Hamilton highlight these issues, it signals something deeper. They are not afraid of adaptation. They have adapted their entire careers. What concerns them is that instinct is being replaced by limitation. Freedom replaced by programming. And fans notice that difference. Because Formula One has always been about commitment. Flat-out risk. No hesitation. Now the hesitation is built into the system. And that is only the beginning of the problem. Because the next issue might be even more dangerous. The next problem is not performance. It is safety. Because when you combine heavy cars, aggressive electrical torque, and movable aerodynamic parts, you create a system that has very little margin for error. And Formula One lives on the edge of error. George Russell made that clear after testing. He warned that active aero failures are not hypothetical. They are real possibilities. If a rear wing remains in low downforce mode entering a high-speed corner, the car instantly loses stability. Not gradually. Instantly. At 280 kilometers per hour, that is not something you casually correct. That is something you survive. And remember, these wings are not static. They are constantly switching modes. Low drag on the straight. High downforce under braking. Transitions happening in milliseconds. Now imagine crosswind. Or dirty air. Or turbulent airflow from the car ahead. The system is making decisions based on airflow data that can change in fractions of a second. If the calculation is late, if the actuator hesitates, if the sensor misreads, the driver pays the price. And that is only one layer. The electrical side introduces another risk. The FIA has implemented strict torque sensors to ensure no team exceeds the power limit. The tolerance is minimal. If the software requests slightly more than allowed, the system can intervene automatically. Picture this. Two cars side by side. Late in the race. Fighting for a podium. One driver presses the throttle. The system detects a calibration spike. Power is reduced. For half a second. That half second changes everything. Position lost. Momentum gone. Possibly contact. Now think about the mental load on the driver. They are managing battery levels. Monitoring tire degradation. Adjusting brake balance. Watching temperatures. Switching deployment modes. All while driving at extreme speed. The more variables you introduce, the more fragile the equilibrium becomes. Fernando Alonso hinted at this when he said drivers are becoming passengers of the system. Because if the car's behavior depends heavily on software calibration, the driver is reacting to invisible processes. Not just physical grip. And then there is the issue of weight. These cars are heavier than before. The battery packs add mass. Mass increases braking distances. Mass increases stress on tires. Esteban Ocon warned that the instant torque delivery destroys rear tires within a handful of laps. Heavy car. Explosive electric torque. Rapid degradation. That forces more management. More lifting. More compromise. So instead of pure racing instinct, drivers are balancing energy curves and tire life simultaneously. And here is where the danger becomes political. If something fails during a race, if an active wing malfunction causes a crash, if a torque sensor glitch alters a decisive overtake, the conversation will shift immediately. It will not be about innovation. It will be about responsibility. The FIA sold 2026 as the future. More sustainable. More technologically advanced. But fans in the United States and the United Kingdom do not tune in for sustainability reports. They tune in for raw competition. For drivers pushing beyond limits. If those limits are increasingly dictated by software restrictions and automated interventions, the perception of authenticity changes. And perception is powerful. Because once viewers begin to feel that drivers are constrained by code rather than competing freely, engagement drops. Criticism grows. Sponsors start asking questions. And when commercial pressure builds, regulation bodies feel it. Pre-season testing is over. The systems are locked. Australia will be the first true stress test. Cold tires. Full fuel loads. 20 cars funneling into turn 1. Active aero switching in turbulent air. Batteries heating under race intensity. If everything works perfectly, the FIA will claim success. But if even one high-profile failure occurs, the narrative changes instantly. Because when Verstappen and Hamilton question the direction of the sport before a single race has started, that is not noise. That is a warning signal. And if Australia confirms their concerns, the real fight of 2026 will not just be on track. It will be about whether Formula One has sacrificed instinct for complexity, and whether the price of innovation has become too high. But here is where the situation becomes truly uncomfortable for the FIA. Because this is no longer just about technical flaws. It is about trust. For years, Formula One has walked a careful line between innovation and spectacle. Hybrid engines. Complex aerodynamics. Energy recovery systems. All of that was accepted because, despite the complexity, the essence remained. Drivers could still push flat out. They could still attack without lifting halfway down a straight. Now that balance feels fragile. Max Verstappen is not a nostalgic driver. He embraces performance. He adapts faster than most. So when he says the system feels artificial, that carries weight. Because he is not resisting change. He is questioning the direction of change. Lewis Hamilton has driven through multiple regulation eras. From screaming naturally aspirated engines to early hybrids. He has seen evolution. But when he admits that braking field changes mid-lap because of aggressive regeneration, that is not preference. That is instability. And instability at this level is magnified. Now consider the broader grid. Lando Norris described the car as heavy and reluctant in slow corners. Charles Leclerc called it fun but terrifying. Alonso suggested drivers are no longer defining the limit. Russell questioned whether active aero failures could cause serious accidents. These are not isolated complaints. They form a pattern. And patterns are dangerous for governing bodies. Because once a narrative forms, it spreads. The narrative right now is simple. 2026 may have gone too far. Too complex. Too software dependent. Too restrictive in energy usage. And here is the deeper layer that makes this even more critical. If performance gaps are determined primarily by energy management algorithms, the sport risks shifting away from visible competition. Fans understand overtakes built on bravery. They understand tire strategy. They understand pit stop timing. But they cannot see megajoule calculations happening in the background. They cannot feel a torque sensor intervention. If a driver loses speed at the end of a straight, the audience does not immediately see battery percentage. They see hesitation. And hesitation feels wrong in Formula One. The FIA built these regulations around sustainability and manufacturer appeal. New engine suppliers. New hybrid architecture. More electrical relevance for road cars. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. But sport is not only business. It is emotion. It is instinct. It is spectacle. And if that spectacle feels filtered through software restrictions, the emotional connection weakens. That is the real risk. Not that the cars are slow. Not that engineers failed. But that the identity of racing shifts quietly. From raw competition to managed efficiency. And once that perception settles in, reversing it becomes complicated. Because manufacturers have invested billions into this era. Power unit programs were designed years in advance. If the FIA reacts too aggressively and alters the framework, it risks financial instability. If it refuses to adapt despite visible flaws, it risks fan backlash. Either path carries consequences. And all of this pressure builds toward one moment. The first race under full competitive stress. Australia. No controlled runs. No hidden deployment strategies. Real wheel-to-wheel combat. If drivers are visibly lifting on straights. If overtakes look like calculated energy releases rather than fearless commitment. If an active aero malfunction or cooling failure influences the result. The criticism will not be quiet. It will be immediate. Because fans in the United States and the United Kingdom are not just watching lap times. They are watching authenticity. They want to believe the best driver wins by pushing harder, braking later, committing more. If they begin to believe the winner is decided by who wrote the smarter code, the emotional equation changes. And that is why this moment feels bigger than preseason tension. When Verstappen and Hamilton both signal structural concerns before the season even starts, it is not drama. It is a stress fracture. The terrible news for 2026 is not about pace. It is about perception. And perception can redefine a sport faster than any regulation ever could. So now the question is no longer whether the cars are advanced. They are. The question is whether advancement has come at the cost of freedom. And if Australia exposes that trade-off under real pressure, the FIA will not just be defending a regulation cycle. They will be defending the soul of Formula One itself.